Board of Elections, and thank you for being here for our public session regarding the Customer Assistance Program for MSD. The run of show will be a quick presentation by MSD Director Diana Christie to kind of outline the program itself and give us some detail. Then we will go to public comment so we can hear from you, which is the highlight of the evening. And then we will have some comments from the commissioners, and we do have a resolution that we will take up at the end of the meeting related to the CAP program. So with no further ado, Diana, if you would start the presentation. There are materials over on the table where Victoria Parks is standing, and so if you want to follow along via paper, please feel free to do that, and there's quite a collection of material over there. Do either of the commissioners have any opening comments, or should we just move right into the presentation?
I have none, Madam President.
Thank you.
All I would say is thank you to everyone who's turned out tonight, and we look forward to hearing from you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Diana Christie. I'll try to move over here near the microphone. Oh, I do need to stand there. I won't walk around.
Wait a minute. Let me see, make sure it's on.
Take it off there.
In the meantime, I want to thank the Board of Elections for hosting, and Sally Crystal, I think, is out in the lobby. Thank you, Sally, for setting up the room.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Driehaus and Commissioners Sumar Dumas and Portune for having us here today and for calling this public hearing. Just to introduce myself, I'm Diana Christie. I'm the interim director at MSD, and I do just want to walk through the program quickly, and then we can get to your questions and comments and get into some more of the details. So there is a slide presentation, and there are materials over here on the table. If you do not want to pick one up, we did bring a copy of the program. And also, I'd like to thank you all for coming today. We did advertise this in many publications, but you know, we would like you all that are here that have heard about this to also help us continue to get the word out, because this program, if it's adopted, you know, we hope that other seniors in the community that are interested can get the information that we have here today. Just quickly, I want to tell you what I'm going to walk through: why we need a customer assistance program. Who is eligible and how it works. Then there is an actual resolution that the commissioners would need to pass to make this effective, and I'll briefly explain what has been drafted by MSD. And I will walk through the implementation schedules and timeframes for the plan that we have proposed. So to start off, why we're here today talking about a customer assistance program. This actually started back in 2016. There was a rate affordability task force, and then the specific issue of a customer assistance program was studied, and recommendations were made in 2018 by the Hamilton County Planning and Development. And in that recommendation is really where we kind of took off from that and from the request of the commissioners to proceed with a plan. The plan, of course, as you'll hear today, it is to help low-income seniors, in particular, low-income senior ratepayers with their sewer bills. You know, we do hear a lot from our customers about our sewer bills, and we're not here to get into all of the concerns about that, but we can today talk about what we can do to help with the low-income seniors. This program that we've proposed aligns with other communities in Ohio and actually throughout the country that have rate discount programs for certain populations. And what we have proposed fits within the applicable legal parameters for rate setting options under the Ohio Revised Code. Again, that is seniors that are age 65 and older. We do follow provisions for the homestead exemption, and those pertain to income. I'll get into that in further detail, but I also wanted to just reiterate what the recommendations were of the Hamilton County Planning and Development Study, which again came out last year and was discussed in public hearings, including in this room right here. There were recommendations for actually more categories of a discount program. The first one was the rate reduction for seniors ages 65 and older that meet certain low income requirements. As the recommendation was presented and it was evaluated by the legal team, both the county and the city, it was recognized that our authority has to be clear under the Ohio Revised Code for establishing discount rates. It is clear that this eligibility is, it is permitted to have a low-income program meeting these eligibility requirements. The other recommendations, however, rate reduction for just low to moderate income that do not meet that senior status, or rate reduction for lower moderate income disabled persons that don't meet that senior status, there is no authority for the commissioners to approve a discounted rate at this time under the revised code. And then the fourth one was actually more of a crisis assistance recommendation for folks for one time that have a need for assistance with their bill, and there was no authority to establish that either. So what we're here to talk about and what we've proposed is to move forward at this time with a low-income senior rate. One of the things that we have done actually since we last presented to the commissioners, we worked a little bit with your team, with the Hamilton County Planning and the folks at MSD, and really tried to hone in even further on that potential population to better understand who would be eligible for our new program. This is just a snapshot of one of the I think we have a handout up there that has more of the statistics that we evaluated to come up with our potential population of 19,000. If you recall, commissioners, at the staff meeting a couple weeks ago, we were looking at a lower number. We thought maybe 5 to 10, but we've reevaluated that, and we think we might actually be, closer to this number of 19,000 potentially eligible low-income seniors meeting our criteria. With that potential population, we also wanted to make sure that we refined our assumptions as far as the potential cost to MSD for administering, actually providing this discounted rate. And that's illustrated here in this table. And again, there's a handout with this information as well. But as you can see, if we were to get 100% participation of that 19,000, of those 19,000 accounts, at the proposed 20% discounted rate, we're looking at about $1.7 million annual cost. What the research and actual participation rates in other cities like ours and counties like ours have seen is that it's really closer to more of a 10 to 20% annual actual participation. So, we would like to get more, which is why I said at the beginning, tell your friends and neighbors about this program once it's approved and implemented, because the whole idea here is to help this entire group of the community, and we'd like to see 100% participation, and we're saying that we can afford 100% participation, not 10% or 20%. So quickly to walk through the eligibility requirements in a little bit more detail. Again, age is pretty straightforward. The senior that is applying for this program must be 65 or older. The total income for 2019, this is an established amount of $32,800. This is based on it's based on the homestead exemption is how we are using the qualifications for the low income requirement. The statute kind of lays out what we can use as guidelines for this, and we're recommending the homestead exemption guidelines. That is about 200% of the federal poverty level. The total income is assumed to be for the applicant and the spouse if they both are in the home. And it's very important, one of the eligibility requirements, this is one of the things we discussed last time, is that the applicant must be, and the senior must be the property owner, and this must be their primary place of residence. The rationale for this, again, is that our sewer bills are paid for as part of your water bill typically, and it is, for that and other reasons, very impractical for us to be able to implement a program at this time that does not tie to the owner of the property. And I also just put up there, this might seem intuitive, but it is important to note that the applicant must be an MSD ratepayer. We also are going to require annual enrollment or annual renewal to confirm eligibility. So how the CAP is proposed to work, if the rate is approved, then we will start accepting applications. Applications will be available, and we're going to try to distribute them in many locations. They will also be available on our website, and you will submit an application, which is a pretty short, about 2-page form. It's mostly the required documentation that must be provided along with that. Once you are approved to be eligible, you will receive a 20% reduction on your monthly sewer bill. To be clear, the reduction is on both the minimum and commodity charges. So some people, if you use more than the minimum amount of water, then you're paying for your usage, which is your commodity charge. It would not apply to any fees or, of course, the water portion of your bill if you are billed by Waterworks or another jurisdiction where those are all together. And again, just to reiterate, customers must reapply every year. So we did present draft legislation, and this is important because in order for the program to be implemented, a reduced rate must be approved, and that's why we're here today to officially have this public meeting and allow the commissioners to hear from you all on this proposed rate reduction. The resolution presents both the discounted rate and also the program as we have proposed and would need to be implemented. Just to be clear, we also had presented all of the rates that are currently in effect. They are all reestablished by this resolution, so that is essentially resetting everything, but none of the other rates are affected by this cap today. So we would be presenting turnkey legislation, so you would have effective rates as of today's date, but nothing else is impacted. It's also important to note that there are no rate increases associated with the discount, so we're not increasing the other rates to offer a reduced senior discount. And finally, our implementation. Of course, the first step would be the Board of County Commissioners' approval of the CAP program and the rates resolution. Once we have that, the next step is the finalizing the rate reduction in our billing system. As many of you know, for a large part of the ratepayers of Hamilton County, the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks does the billing. We do have some other jurisdictions that do the billing for MSD, so we have to coordinate with them. And there is, a significant amount of work involved with changing rates, testing those rates in the system before we can send out bills. So this is estimated to be a 3 to 6 month process. In the meantime, if the program is approved, then we will begin our initial communication and outreach. That would be, getting applications out there to the community through different senior services. We have a website already set up that's live, but we would actually be able to begin taking calls and information and providing information and answering questions and accepting applications. Once we have those applications, we're going to be doing our eligibility review in-house at MSD. There will be a designated person, and I'll show that in the next slide, that will be available to answer questions and hopefully walk anyone interested through the process. We expect to be able to turn those around in 21 days, and then you would have notice of your approval in most cases, and in some cases, if you don't meet the eligibility, your denial. And in that case, there would be an opportunity to appeal. And finally, I do want to introduce Ann Newsom here. She's in the back. You can step on up. So Ann Newsom is with MSD, and she's in my office, in the Office of Director, and she's been designated as the CAP manager, so she would really be the outreach person to all of you and our main contact to answer questions, to accept the applications, and to provide feedback. We do also already have a page live on our website for information on the program. So with that, that's the end of the planned presentation, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Of Diana?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Madam President, if I may, Director Christie, just one question to help us also frame the issue for this evening and public testimony around the issue of the discount rate and the like. You've recommended 20%, while there are other rates that MSD considered 30% and 40% in terms of discount rates. Can you elaborate on why the sewer district recommended the 20% discount rate?
Yes, Commissioner. So we did recommend 20% at this time. And, I think it is, I'm glad you asked the question because I didn't really explain, where we started from last time, which is, I think both MSD and the commissioners agree that this is a narrow program that we're proposing today. And I think that we aren't sure, both with this program and with the potential to have additional categories in which we could present discounted rates. For example, right now we're only talking about low-income seniors. Other communities do have a program for low-income folks in general. And in that case, it would be, we'd have a much larger pool of people. We want to make sure that this does not impact our rates. I mean, as I mentioned, right now, we're proposing 20% because even at full participation, which, we would like to get to, and that really is something that we can afford without impacting the rest of the community.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that President Driehaus is going to be discussing relative to the resolution that we're going to look at the end of the meeting, some of those other elements that could go into a program that we're not currently allowed to do, but that we hope to be allowed to do in the future. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify something that you said, because this is part of a list of recommendations that came from the Rate Affordability Task Force. And so we have a graph over there on the table. It looks like this. And so you can see some of the recommendations that have been implemented and acted on. And so we are kind of clicking through the list here. And so this customer assistance program is item number 6 on the list. And so we are glad to be at this moment in time where we're very close to implementing a program. Also do want to also highlight that the ORC is restrictive in the way that we can implement this kind of program. And so while other communities that are not counties have implemented programs that are broader than this, as a county, this is what we are allowed to do. But we will be discussing a resolution. We discussed it actually today at our board meeting that could potentially expand the program. But we want to hear from you first before we get to the resolution.
Madam President?
Yes.
May I just one other thing? This was not considered or recommended by the Ratepayer Affordability Task Force because the work was already well underway, but it does have an impact on rates and costs overall of the consent decree program, and it directly relates to goal or item number 7 that was recommended by the Ratepayer Affordability Task Force concerning impervious surface rates. So items that deal with stormwater runoff that then gets into the sewers. The item that I'm referring to is legislation that Hamilton County, quite honestly, is largely responsible for being able to get adopted at the federal level in working with our federal delegation in a very bipartisan way. And all of our boards unanimously supported this dating back to 2010. Moving forward, it's taken that long, but that legislation was just approved by Congress and signed into law by the President January 12th of this year. And it was costed out that the savings that it could generate to MSD and frankly to all of you over the life of the consent decree program could be as much as $1 billion in reduced cost. So let me repeat that number again, $1 billion in reduced cost. That, of course, will have a great impact on what rates will be in the future.
Thank you. All right, without further ado, I'm going to start reading through the cards as I receive them. So Danelle Lucan is first. And please go up to the microphone. You have the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes. Yeah, but we're recording you, so over the mic. And for those of you that are unfamiliar, the timer up here is indicating the time. So green means full go, yellow means you're getting close to your time, and red means you are at your time.
That's a good thing I'm colorblind, so I can't see
Uh-oh.
that. But
All
anyway.
right, we'll just yell at you.
My name's Dan Lucan. I reside at 5515 Pinecrest Drive in Green Township. We bought our house in 11/12 of 13, and 6 weeks later we had our first flood. After that, we've had 25 more floods. MSD has failed to rectify the problem, do anything about it. They did install a backflow indicator, a float on a stick, and every time our basement floods, that little float doesn't go anywhere. But they asked us if we had videotape of it coming up through our floor drains. We provided them with video of the water coming up through our floor drains. That video mysteriously disappeared from their records. We also had the video of our sewer or drains videoed 3 times. Our plumber hand-delivered the video to MSD, and that mysteriously disappeared. They were at our house 2 weeks ago on a Sunday, and my wife and I watched the guys pull the floats out, and the float out by the street was tripped, and when they laid it on the ground, the technician, or whatever you call him, took his foot, kicked the clip so it showed that the float wasn't tripped. When they were asked that, hey, did the float trip? No, your basement. You couldn't have got any water in your basement because our float doesn't indicate that. So I hope your customer assistance program works, but right now it's pretty shitty.
Thank you. And Karen Ball is over here on the side of the room. If you would like to follow up, we'd be happy to follow. And MSD is in the front of the room, so we can.
Can you say your address again? 'Cause I'm-
5515 Pinecrest Drive.
Thank you. The next speaker is Florence Miller.
Yes, I'm Florence Miller and a member of CUFA, and I'm just going to address what our letter to Metropolitan Sewer District is, that the intended plan is too restrictive and it lacks adequate oversight and doesn't offer enough of a discount. And what we're recommending is modifications to the program, increase the discount rate from 20 to 40%, include renters in the program, make the income requirement 175% of the poverty level, have the program administered by a third party, not in-house at MSD, and do not require seniors to qualify every year. So we hope you consider our comments and let us know below from the assignees of when you are going to make these program changes possibly. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker it's Mr. Davis. Ah, there you go. Good evening.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity for freedom of speech. My name is Roy Davis. I'm a board member of Community United for Action, better known as CUFA. I'm one of the 42,000 renters living in Hamilton County and live below the poverty level. My utilities are included in my rent. I am not qualified for this program as it is proposed. We cannot restrict renters from getting help with their sewer bill, ignoring that most people at the lower level of poverty are paying rent, including their sewage, through the sewage. The inability to keep up with utilities is not just a necessity to water, it's a housing issue. If people cannot afford the utilities, they can't get out of this cycle of moving and moving. Community United for Action is recommending that all programs implemented to help people afford their sewage bill include renters. I must say something personally about myself. I'm a military man. United States Army. I was in Vietnam. When we went to service, we made an oath. We took an oath to protect our country against foreign and domestic enemies. I hope you guys are not a domestic enemy to us. And domestic enemy is within. So all I'm asking you guys to do is call upon you to be our ally in this simple problem and unite and help us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is.
Madam President,
Yes.
Not to interject, but I know it's public hearing, not to go back and forth. I would just ask Florence, who I've met before, if you could give me a call. I'd be very interested in why you were saying about qualifying every year. You didn't think that was a good idea. So Florence, if you could give me a call, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Park is next.
Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
a union member. I'm a volunteer with the Sierra Club on their executive committee. I want to address why we're here. There's something very wrong with the rate structure. I have a report here from the National Association of Clean Water Agencies. That's a trade association for all the utilities that do water and sewer in this country. In this report, there's a graph that shows how much different utilities charge for their minimum charge. The minimum charge is a huge deal. It's why we're here tonight. So the charges go from anywhere from $0 up to $480 a year. Where do you think Cincinnati is? We're right up there leading the charge at $480, the most regressive rate structure that exists. What does this mean? It means $40 a month. Half of the utilities in this country charge less than $14 a month minimum charge. A quarter of them charge less than $6.50 a month. That has a huge impact. Let me explain how that works. Half of the accounts for residential single-family MSD users pay a sewer charge that is almost entirely the result of the minimum charge. They never make it above the amount of water usage. Now we might ask, why do they even use water usage? The problem here is stormwater. We have an ancient system. It needs to be fixed county-wide. Has nothing to do with how much water you use. These half of all residential ratepayers pay $20 on average per 100 cubic feet of water that they use. People at the other end of the distribution pay $7 to $8 per 100 cubic feet. This is a very regressive rate structure. This has been pointed out many times to the commissioners. To not fix the rate structure and just do this assistance program is not acceptable. We support an assistance program. Even with a good rate structure, there will be people who need help, that's fine, but you ought to fix the system. And while you're at it, stop the discount to the big commercial and institutional users that get a 10% discount. And while you're at it, fix the stormwater impermeable surface issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is, I hope I'm saying it right, Danelle Regine. Oh, not even close. My bad. Not even close. Welcome.
Commend you for your attempt to get it right.
Appreciate that. Very generous.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Elder Danelle D. Ragland. I'm a board member at CUFA. I got a two-part concern. The first concern, when we first started talking about this, I believe the commissioners, they recommend a 40% discount. However, when MSD got a hold of it, it dropped down to a 20% discount. That is a very low discount, and it definitely needs to be higher, at least 40 or more. I have been on the phone with Dayton and Columbus, and they even admit that that's a very low discount. I'm a senior citizen, and I got some disability also, but I'm a home renter. To leave the home renters out of this is a disjustice. I have 4 children in the house. If I got to decide what bill I must pay, whether it's water or gas and electric, If I don't pay the water, then they cut the water off. And then if we got to use the restroom, we can't flush. That's a health hazard. Gas and liquid, I'm an insulin diabetic. I take 2 injections a day. My insulin got to stay cold if they cut my liquid off. I have got help in the past, and this is a very ugly situation because you got to, number one, if they put a notice on your door to cut the water off, that's a fee for just putting the notice on the door. Then you got to pay a late fee, and you got to have enough money to if you're going to get some help, you got to pay at least the old bill, and then they'll work with you on the current bill. So most agencies that you can go to for help, they want to make sure if they help you that you'll be able next month to pay, because they don't want you to keep coming back, because we help you 1 month. If you can't pay the next month, you'll be right back in our face again. So therefore, they want you to come up with that money. And I would hate to have to be the person that make the decision on what bill that I would have to pay, because both is very equal and both are very important. So I hope that we can get a higher discount than 20%. And I hope not only for the senior citizens as myself and health problems, for every Cincinnatian and for every county that's involved in this. We need to look at a broader picture. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Our next speaker is Stephanie Bose.
Good evening, Madam President. Commissioners, my name is Stephanie Mose, and I am an attorney with the Legal Aid Society. I work on our housing consumer team, and daily we see and hear the stories of homeowners and tenants who are faced without water in our community. It is not a theoretical problem, it is a very real problem, and I really appreciate the commissioners having the vision and the willingness to make this a reality in our community. It's something that has been just too long waiting for it, and so tonight is very important. Legal Aid Society supports, on behalf of our clients, the proposal. We do hope that the commissioners will continue to work with community groups and others and residents of Hamilton County to find ways to expand it. I was excited to hear from the interim director of MSD tonight that the hope is to reach as many individuals as possible, and that there is perhaps something that we'll hear about later to expand this to other low-income individuals. There are many, many families, not just seniors, but many families struggling, living daily at times without water, having to figure out ways to flush toilets, to bathe their children, and this could be an important step for them. Additionally, I do hope that the commissioners will consider coming back very soon after implementation to really look at what the numbers of people participating in the program is and see if there is a way to increase the percentage. I think some of the most successful programs that were studied in the study over 3 years did have a rate closer to a 40% discount. And my hope is that if that does look to be affordable once you see the participation rates and what the real need is out in the community, that the commissioners would revisit that and look at whether that could happen. But thank you so much for your vision, for your leadership, and your willingness to attack this very difficult problem in our community.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mary, it looks like Aguilera. Is that right? Nice. Welcome.
Hello, I'm with the Ohio Poor People's Campaign, National Call for More Revival. I'm here to support Communities United for Action and asking that the Board of Commissioners consider their recommendations about the increase of the discount rate to 40%, to also include the renters, also to make the income requirements 175% of their poverty level, have the program administered by a third party, not in-house at MSD, and do not require seniors to qualify every year. For me as a part of the city, I look at things from a systemic issue. It's not you have to fix, like the Sierra Club say, you have to fix the storm drains and all the water issues and the sewer issues, and that will reduce all the other issues. It's a systemic problem, and you can't just fix one part of it without fixing all the other parts of. So I'm not a very good public speaker, so I apologize, but I'm here to support the KUFA and all their additional requirements.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is Pamela Adams. Got you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. How you doing, Mr. Patoon?
I'm well. How are you?
Pamela J. Adams to the new commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, past president of North Fairmont Community Council for 15 years. Also serve on the CCPC board for the Cincinnati Health Department. What I'm asking, I'm agreeing with everyone. I also work with KUFA. We were at the table when we started with KUFA coming after this program. And I agree with what everyone is saying. And I agree with about the seniors. Once you're going to the homestead program, the seniors should not have to requalify every year if you're going to use the homestead program the way it's going to be used with this program here. Because you have to understand, seniors might forget to apply. Once you get into the homestead program, they always send you your stuff in the mail. And then the other thing is that I do hope that you include everyone, because not only the seniors have trouble, everyone have trouble if you have to pay your water bill. And then 20% is not enough for seniors either, because the senior has to deal with the choice of, they only have this one piece of money. They've worked all their life. And we as United States should take care of our seniors much better than what we are doing to them right today. Because they have to choose from buying prescriptions that they don't get free because the government's not doing it, and buying food and getting their bills paid at the same time. That's a hardness on them. That's a hardship on them. It's a hardship on anyone who has someone that is disabled under the age of 65. That's why I agree with that you should just extend this out and let everyone that are paying water bills fill out the applications and send them in. And if they have people that are disabled, say for instance the girl might be in her 30s and she has a disabled child, 2 or 3 of them, or just one, she should be considered. Everyone should be considered. Thank you very much. You have a good day.
Thank you.
I know you have a hard day. Thank you.
A good evening anyway, right? All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Mabel Poe. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mabel Poe, and I live at 5022 Lillian Drive in Bond Hill. And I am here today to support the things that everyone has said. I am also agreeing with the fact that 20% discount is too low for everyone. And I think that it should be up to 40%. Because it's true that there are people who are disabled. As you can see, I had to retire early, okay, and I'm on fixed income, and I'm very fixed income, and the government does not pay for all my medication, which sometimes I have to pay $400 for, one prescription, and it's a hardship on me, and I can imagine if I had gone out earlier than I did, I would probably have to move. I am a homeowner. And if I have problems with my water or with my gas and electric, which is over $500 a month sometime, and I do not run my lights, and my gas, got a new gas system, furnace, and hot water, and I don't run it. 68 is the degree that I have in my house, whether it's below 21 degrees outside or whether it is 70 degree outside. I want to say that I hope to see that this count is higher than the 20% and goes up to 40. I also feel that seniors should not have to reapply every year. I agree with that. And also that the property level should be 175%. I just want to reiterate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Valerie Reid. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Reid, and I live at 2518 Hardmore Avenue in Gulf Manor. I'm also a member of CUFA. I am a landlord. I rent to seniors and low-income family, and I would like to see this program. I would like to see the renters be included in this program. For one thing, I, as a landlord, I passed on over like the water bill to my tenants, and they're responsible for paying the water bill. And there are a lot of landlords that do that. And with senior, if this are going to seniors, I believe every senior should be considered for this program. And there are times where I have to go down and talk on their behalf, to get their water to stay on. And a lot of times, some of the tenants, they cannot afford to pay it because of their income. Then they would leave the landlord with a high water bill. And I would appreciate if you could look at this and consider all seniors for this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Pat Andwan.
Good evening, and I truly appreciate the interest that you're showing in this problem. I also am a member of CUFA. I live at 32 Chalmers Lane in Green Hills, and as a senior who would obviously be affected by your eligibility requirements, I got here a little bit late due to traffic, but I keep hearing people refer to 175% of the income rate I take that is on page 3 of your handout. It says that it's 200% of federal poverty level. Am I missing something here? It's because it sounds to me that you're providing a higher threshold and they're asking for a lower threshold.
Yeah, I think, well, we can get some clarity, but that is the percentage of the poverty rate that you're referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in my mind, let's say the poverty rate is $10,000 and it says that you can make up to 200% of that. Let's say this person's making $20,000. Well, if they're asking for 175,000 or 175% to be the peak, it's coming across in my mind that they're asking you to not make this available to certain people who fall in that gap between 175 and 200%. And maybe I'm just confusing my math there.
I think they want to have more people eligible for the program.
Okay. Well, with that said, I will say that I agree with most everything that's been said here this evening. This 20% discount, I say if Big Lots and Ollie's can allow 20% discounts umpteen times a year without any income or hardship, it seems to me like a 20% discount is pretty much of a pittance. So I would also go for the 40%. I called the water company last month because my bill was, I thought, astronomical, and it was mainly sewer. I use below the minimum, but it's still, there's no incentive to conserve on water or sewage when you're going to get hit in the pocketbook one way or the other. So, you know, for those of us who really do try to conserve, it's really, again,
Uh-oh.
The other thing is, with regards to renters, I think it should be available to, across the board, to all residences.
My apologies. Go ahead and finish up. Mm-hmm.
To all residences, because but the water company has a benefit. If they don't pay it, they could go to landlord and get, they've got a lot of insurance to not give any incentive to. The other thing that I wanted to point out, electric, which I realize we're not here to talk about, but it is a huge. One thing you can get done is this. When you call to look into it or online, it's owned. Which is, commissioners would be in a place, since you are the auditor's office, to register rentals. Getting these energy uses also that landlords want to put the minimum amount of money in.
I'll talk to you later.
It's okay. Fix water leaks and so forth. So I don't know if there's some kind of a partnership you can bring the landlords in, responsible with.
Thank you. I don't have any other speakers cards. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak that did not fill out a speaker's card? Okay, thank you for that. We had, we've had a couple of hearings about this already, and so I think some of us, and then we've talked to many of the community groups, CUFA included, and so we did anticipate some of the conversations, some of the public comments that you have offered. And so we had a resolution drawn up, and we've got it in front of us this evening. And Jackie, do we have some of the resolutions? Would you mind putting them over, or passing them out? I don't know how many you have, but I will read the relevant language to you so that everybody's on the same page. But we had a resolution drawn up anticipating some of the questions or comments that you've had, because the ORC is so restrictive when it comes to a program, and we are only allowed to offer it for seniors. And so if there's any possibility of us offering to additional populations, for instance, low-income individuals that are not seniors, we need state law to change to allow us to do that. And so Cecil Thomas mentioned at our last, we had a delegation meeting with state reps and state senators, and Cecil Thomas mentioned that he had a draft bill that was already, he already has it, that talks about an expansion of the program. And so we wanted to offer a resolution ourselves to encourage partnerships throughout the community to help us advance legislation once we determine and define what the expanded population would look like. And we also want to include the public in this conversation, and you will see that as I read through the resolution. So I'm going to do this and then ask my fellow commissioners to comment. So the resolution is a few pages long. The most relevant language is on the last page. It says, "Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County that the Board of County Commissioners is requesting the assistance of the general public of Southwest Ohio and of all local legislators, including the City of Cincinnati Mayor Cranley, all members of City Council, and all Ohio House of Representatives and Ohio State Senators representing constituents in Southwest Ohio, in crafting and advocating for legislative changes to the ORC that would allow county sewer districts to expand their ability to offer expanded customer assistance programs, including but not limited to the recommendations of the Customer Assistance Program Working Group, which included rate discounts for low-income seniors, low-income disabled persons, rate discounts for low-income rate-paying households, and a financial hardship assistance program. I want to point out that this is something that is, the legislation that will be offered is permissive. It is statewide, though, so it will influence everything throughout the state, not just Hamilton County. And so it's likely to be permissive legislation, and these are some ideas that we have gleaned from you and others as we've had these public hearings. But the list can be tweaked, expanded upon, restricted, whatever. But this is to get the conversation going, and this is something that we thought would be important to bring forward at the public hearing this evening. So with that, I will turn it over to the Vice President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, as you were saying, Senator Cecil Thomas is working on this issue, but not knowing how long legislation will take for that to happen, the commission saw fit to have this resolution right away to show the public that we are extremely interested in getting this program started. And also, as the President read, the assistance of the general public of Southwest Ohio, that we put you guys first before even the mayor or legislators or anything, because we know we work for you. And it's very important, and you're going to be directly impacted where the legislation may be indirectly impacted because they may not necessarily live in Hamilton County. But we thought it was very important to make sure that we included you at the top end and not at the end, to let you know the importance of your involvement in this process. I have nothing else.
Thank you. Commissioner Porto.
Madam President, thank you. And first of all, thank you all again for your testimony here tonight and all the points that you have raised. This actually is the 7th public hearing we've conducted on the issue of a customer assistance program. We're grateful for all the input over all of those public hearings that date back over the past year and a half, or maybe even longer, to tell you the truth, and for the very good work of not only county staff, but of MSD and its help and assistance in making recommendations to us with respect to what we can do. To echo what the President and Vice President said, and you know, I'm always told that you got to say things 3 times for it. At least for me, I need to hear things 3 times in order for it to sink in. So maybe this is for my benefit and nobody else is in the room. You all are quick studies and I'm not. But we are not allowed by state law to do a number of the things that you have asked us to do, to extend the program outside of seniors who qualify for the homestead exemption. That's in essence what we're allowed to do. The discount that we can apply is within our choosing, and so on. But as far as some of the basic eligibility requirements, especially the number or the citizens that can qualify under state law, we're limited to what we can do. So what MSD has done is MSD has recommended to us, first, to act on a customer assistance program that can be in place while we work with all of you and the state legislators to get state law changed to do more than what we are allowed to do. The question is, should we delay acting on a program that is within our authority while we continue to work on getting changes done to implement a much broader and much more robust program, which is all of our goal. We want to have as robust and as comprehensive and as expansive a program to help people with their MSD rates as we possibly can do, without causing rates to go up for people, because that's kind of counterintuitive to discount rates while your rates go up at the same time. That wouldn't make any real sense. So one of the things we have to decide is, should we act on what we're allowed to do first, or now being within a week, within a month, we have to choose what the discount rate is, and we heard from all of you, you want that rate to be 40%. It's currently recommended to us at 20%, so we have to decide what that discount rate should be. And second, a lot of you said, please do this at 175% of the federal poverty rate. Well, MSD actually recommended that we make those who are at 200% or below the federal poverty rate for eligibility. So MSD's actually recommended that it be more inclusive than what many of you have asked for tonight. They've recommended 200% as opposed to it coming in at 175%. So number one, do we act on what MSD has recommended, what we are allowed to do first? That's not the resolution that we have in front of us tonight, but it is a resolution that I feel we should take up. And unless anybody disagrees, and I guess I'd ask for a show of hands, does anybody disagree with us acting on implementing what we're allowed to do while we continue to work on doing everything that we want to do? Does anybody disagree with us doing that? Ma'am? Pat? No, I'm talking about just doing a program for seniors who qualify for the homestead exemption. That's what we're allowed to do by law, okay? We have to determine what that discount is. So that's up to us to decide what that is, and we heard what all of you said here tonight, but we still have to decide what that number is. I'm just saying, is anybody against us acting on implementing a program within the legal authority that we have now, while we continue to work on getting state law changed so we can do more? Does anybody object to that? Thank you. I didn't think anybody did, but I thought the question needed to be asked because that's one of the issues that we have in front of us. All right, so second then, as President Driehaus has detailed, as the resolution indicates, we want to expand this to doing the kinds of things that you want it expanded to. We want it to be expanded to be available to low-income disabled persons. We want it expanded to other low-income individuals, low-income rate-paying households. We want a financial hardship assistance component to this. We want this to go, include other things perhaps. I mean, the way the resolution is worded is that we want to do the things that were recommended by the Customer Assistance Working Group, but not necessarily be limited to what they recommended. This is because the state legislators might want to do more. You've asked us to do things that aren't necessarily what the working group recommended. So that's why we want to work with all of you, as Vice President Samaroduma said, in this process, ongoing with the state legislature to get state law changed so we can do more. And that's what the resolution is that is in front of us tonight, that we're going to act on tonight, which is simply saying we are committed to now moving forward to get state law changed. We want your help in that process. We want the mayor and the city council. We want all the state legislators. We want anybody else that wants to help us to get involved in getting state law changed so that we can do all of those things that we're not presently allowed to do as it relates to a customer assistance program. The other thing that I would comment on is that this matrix or graph that is available to everybody, that details all of the recommendations that came to us from the Ratepayer Affordability Task Force. And as you will see, we have acted on, or are in the process of acting on, everything that they recommended, and implemented those things, or about to implement everything that they recommended, with the one exception being taking action on the issue of impervious surface rates And those are your large contributors of stormwater runoff that gets in the sewer, you know, your big parking lots and others that aren't currently MSD ratepayers, all right? And because of the conversation that we've had, everybody, I think it's fair to say the board as a board is committed to working to address that issue in a way that captures those contributors and then requires them to pay their fair share. And that's going to have an effect on what everybody else pays in this, because right now, all of you are paying collectively 100% of this issue, but there's a lot of people that aren't paying anything at all that need to pay because they're contributors. And that's what that recommendation relates to, and that's what we are committed to working on. And we discussed with staff today and MSD today about getting their involvement and working with us in getting all of that information in front of us quickly, very quickly, so we can act on that as well, so that we will then have acted on all of the recommendations from the Ratepayer Affordability Task Force and acted on them in a positive way. Of course, these aren't the only things that we've been doing and working on, as all of you know, including that legislation that we worked on for what seems like forever, but finally that's been adopted, and we are in the process of acting on how that will help us all keep costs down, keep rates down, keep all of your bills down. So that's kind of the collective sort of three-pronged approach that we have been taking over the years, and a lot of things we've done already and implemented. One major thing we just succeeded on that will have an effect over the life of the consent decree in keeping costs down and rates down. And then the last thing here has to do with the customer assistance program and the impervious surface issue that we are acting on, and tonight are going to act on a resolution that calls for all of us to work together to get state law changed so that we can allow for things like renters to be included in the program, for all seniors to be included, for low-income disabled individuals to be included, whether they're seniors or not, and so on and so on and so on. And that's the resolution that is in front of us.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Yeah.
Could you? So,
no, I actually don't. I guess you'd be referring
No,
to some type of referendum.
yeah,
or
so
something.
no.
That's not really how it works on this. I think we actually have an expert here in Commissioner Driehaus who has spent some time in the State House.
8 years in the legislature.
Yeah,
So there will likely be a bill introduced. Cecil has, Senator Thomas has a draft of legislation that he intends to introduce. We intend to work very closely with him to make sure it encapsulates all of what we have just learned and heard. Once that bill is introduced, then you can weigh in on the bill and advocate to your own state rep, your own state senator, and anybody else you want in support of that piece of legislation. We are not there yet with the legislation because nothing yet has been introduced. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, so the idea is to weigh in, particularly if Cecil Thomas is not your state senator and someone else is, then we want to make sure that people understand there's broad support for whatever he's introducing. So that's a step that's a little further down the road. Tonight, we've got a resolution in front of us that we are passing as the county commission, and so I'm going to move that we approve, this is what we've been talking about, move to approve of the resolution calling on all local legislative bodies to join Hamilton County in seeking legislative changes to expand the customer assistance program in Hamilton County sewer districts.
Second.
Commissioner Driehaus?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fortune?
Yes.
Thank you. In addition to that, we need to get to the legislation that will be acting on with MSD to put this program in place in the meantime for seniors, which is what we're allowed to do. And so the timing of that, I mean, I feel like we have to decide on the discount rate. And I think that's the one question that is kind of outstanding. We've got a graph in front of us that shows us the impact of participation rates and the discount rates, and so we will need to make a decision on that as a board. So can we schedule this for an upcoming meeting to have that discussion?
We can schedule it for a staff meeting, Commissioner. There's a couple other just technical questions I'd like to get with Director Christie on, just to talk a little bit about, so we can report back to the board on that. But I would,
Okay.
yes, I would suggest putting this on the agenda for a upcoming staff meeting. We can report back on that, have legal counsel review the resolution that MSD has submitted, make sure that's ready to go, and then we can put this on for a
Okay.
legislative meeting for passage.
Okay, that's
Madam
great.
President?
Yes.
And as we do that, and I'm sure there's already been work done on this so far, but as was indicated by Director Christie, one of the reasons why MSD recommended a 20% discount as opposed to the 40% figure is MSD, and Director, correct me if I am misinterpreting or I have concluded incorrectly what I understood you to say, but one of the reasons why you recommended the lowest of the three potential discounts is because you were trying to create some room for other programs to be considered by the board and the financial impact they would have in a way that doesn't cause rates to go up. So am I right in what I interpreted?
That's exactly right.
Okay, so as we schedule this before us, it would be helpful if you are able to run these calculations at all, what the estimated, and I know you can't get it to a certain degree of certainty, but within reasonable estimated probability, will you be able to calculate what the cost to the district may be of the various kinds of additions to a program? You might have it already. Okay, I figured you were already working on that. Thank you. And so if you'll share some of that with us, maybe there's something you can share that would be, that you'd want to share tonight. If not, try to put it in the context of a graph or a chart like this, so that we have what the estimated cost and participation rates are of those other elements that were talked about tonight, and what that cost may be, so that we can sort of weigh all of that as we determine soon what the discount rate will be for the program that we're allowed to do right now as we move forward for state law change.
Started on that, I think we would be happy to share it with you after we provide it electronically.
Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, that's something that I would also submit that we need to post on our website so all of you have access to it, and we'll make sure that we do that. All right. And MSD will, Director, could you post that on your website also, all of that?
And to clarify, we've already looked at, again, as it's all estimated, low-income owners.
Can you use or my mic, or so they can all hear? Yeah.
So we've started on this, to provide this additional information. I did not include it in the presentation tonight since it's outside of what we can do.
Right.
But just from a financial impact, we have looked at the same graphical illustration for participation and discount rate from 20 to 40. Looking at low-income owners that are non-seniors, so essentially anyone that qualifies for the same low-income requirements. And then we have also tried to estimate if it was expanded to renters that meet that same qualification.
Right.
So the same low-income qualification that are not property owners. So yes, we can provide that information on our website and share it with you tomorrow.
And were all of your figures that you have calculated already based upon participation of individuals who are at or below 200% of the federal poverty rate?
I believe the number we've been using is that 32,000. So that's already that's established by statute as the low income. It's the Ohio adjusted gross income for the homestead and the, I think it's just the homestead. So that's the established number and it equates to about that 200%.
Okay.
It's slightly below. So it's not that we selected 200%. We're essentially using the.
We're using the eligibility number.
Using the eligibility
And
number.
that equates to around 200%.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, we've used the same criteria in this, just for purposes
Got
of
it.
this.
Thank you.
So as you do these calculations, then you are also estimating the financial impact, because that's the balance here.
Yes.
Is the financial impact. If we don't want to have programs that raise rates, then what is, I mean, at some point, we have to figure out the tipping point and what our program then looks like in the confines of whatever we determine, we can afford, right, without having a rate increase. And so I think has to be part of the equation as well.
Right, and at least from my perspective, I'm not the rate policymaker, but I think it would be difficult if we started with a senior rate that was at 40%, and then we wanted to expand this to other low-income folks in our community, and we offered them something less than 40, because once it's expanding, we can't keep up with that discount. So that's really, as we look at a larger program, we feel that 40% would be, you can see with the numbers, once you get to those larger groups, that 40% is going to impact us and would be hard to sustain.
Madam President?
Yes.
And the other element here, unanswered as of yet, but, and I know Mrs. Ball is here, and she's working on this issue, this element. But as we work to address the last of the ratepayer affordability task force recommendations related to generators of stormwater runoff through large impervious surfaces, and working to figure out how we capture them and what their rate contribution should be to the overall cost of things. To the extent that we're able to quantify what that number will be in terms of dollars and cents that would be generated by having this additional group of ratepayers, if you will, into the overall system. And again, I understand these are all estimates, but as we're factoring all of this stuff in, we may want to try to see what numbers we can get to a reasonable degree of probability as to what that additional financial contribution to the district could be as it relates to affordability of everything that we're looking at. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Director, as well. All right, so we will have that in front of us within the next couple of weeks at one of our meetings. We can have some of the calculations in front of us too, hopefully. And if you could respond to, I think we've all been taking notes as to what we heard in some themes that were from speaker to speaker. If you could tie amounts to those, the 40% discount rate obviously was one of them, including renters was one of them. The annual qualifier, I don't know if there's any kind of financial impact associated with that one. Third party to implement the program, there's a cost associated with that one. So if you could kind of help us round out that conversation, I think that might be helpful.
Yep.
All right, so, yes, sir. I appreciate your input, but tonight's meeting is about the customer assistance program, and so that is what we've focused on. We did bring in some other elements because I think they're relative to the conversation, but we're trying to focus on passing a customer assistance program within the limits we have, and then trying to expand that. And I understand your concern. We've had conversations about that before, but tonight was about this program. But thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
I have nothing.
All right, good. I will move to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you all for coming.